boom, Alabama wins 63-0.
I mean, these are fans that cursed his name for his entire career. These are Texas A&M and Notre Dame fans. And they all were cheering for Nick Saban like he has, in fact, become this universally beloved figure in the sport now.
So after what we saw in Tuscaloosa on Saturday, do you think Alabama can win the SEC? Beat Everyone is brought to you by Broadway Joe's Fantasy Sports, inspired by football legend Joe Namath. Embrace the thrill of daily fantasy sports like never before in a new app coming soon. Welcome to Beat Everyone. I am Ben Flanagan, and later on we have a really special guest, Josh Sneed from the super popular SEC Shorts is going to join us. But first, we saw football on Saturday, and here to break it down with me is Matt Scalici, show producer and a frequent guest on the show. And Matt, I mean, first, if you recovered from week one, it felt like a lot of football.
It was. I love that feeling of exhaustion when you're going to bed at 11:30 on the opening night of college football and your brain is still spinning because you forgot how fun it is to do nothing but watch college football for an entire day.
Yeah, you know, it was pouring raining in Tuscaloosa for most of the day. It kind of let up right before kickoff, but I was out walking around in it, and so were thousands of Alabama fans. They were just ready to go. I took my 8-year-old daughter to the game. She insisted on staying all 4 quarters of it. So we saw everything: the light show, the Dixieland Delight, the Friends in Low Places, the flyover at the beginning of the game. It was good to have it all back, but man, she just wanted the entire experience. She got it. Because it was the first game. She wanted to make it count. And man, I mean, it's a new era, Matt. And you know, listen, Alabama, they played Western Kentucky, obviously, in Bryant-Denny Stadium, season opener. Bama they were 30-point favorites, and we really didn't know what to expect on Saturday. Look, I mean, Saban is gone. The expectation is always win them all, championship or bust. It's what fans knew and loved about his program. But it's the Kalen DeBoer era, and there might be some slippage. There might be some sloppy play. It's a new roster. It's a new system. Guys transferred out. Guys transferred in. DeBoer gets at least a year to settle in. And then, boom, Alabama wins 63-0. Matt, is Bama back?
A team that made it one play away from the national championship last year. Are they back? You know, I honestly, and our friend Michael Casagrande wrote about this. I think I think one of the shocking things about it was how much it didn't feel different. It felt very much like the same dominant Alabama that you expect to see in games like this. And were there new wrinkles to it? To some degree, mainly new names. I think it was not what you would say is a wildly inventive offensive game plan. I think they kept it pretty vanilla, which is what you typically see teams like this do in these season openers against less talented opponents. But what you're going to see in games like this, and what you're going to see, I think this bore out over the entire SEC, is you're going to see what the top end capability of a lot of these teams looks like. It's what they look like when everything's going right and not a lot of their problems exposed for the most part. And obviously that's not the case for the teams that played more difficult opponents. And we'll see what that reveals about Alabama in a few weeks, maybe. But in terms of what it looks like at their best, I think there's explosive big playability on defense, which is fun to see. I don't know that has been the case always the last few years. I think on offense, it's perhaps a slightly more polished and refined version of what we have seen the last couple of years with this basic personnel. Obviously, there are new skill position players, and we could talk about those guys. But Jalen Milroe, you know, passes for 3 touchdowns, rushes for 2 touchdowns. That's what nobody else that's ever played quarterback at Alabama has done. Jalen Milroe did it for the 3rd time in his career this weekend. That's kind of what he looks like when everything's firing and everything's going well.
Yeah, I mean, you want to see them run the offense well. You want to see them execute, right? Like they have an opponent like Western Kentucky. Sure, it's not an SEC team that you're playing, and so that gives them an opportunity to maybe run the offense against it, like in real time, in real action against a real team that is playing defense, and it's not the scout team, it's not first team Alabama defense, and you can see like what it actually looks like. And I thought, there was a little stumble out of the gate, but then it was almost flawless in a lot of ways. They scored on like 2 or 3 plays on a drive. So Matt, like, what tone did Kalen DeBoer set here? I mean, again, it's Western Kentucky, but look, I mean, well-coached teams with talented players can make things interesting for the Blue Bloods like Alabama, especially a team in transition. But Alabama left no doubt. They dominated. I mean, first drive was 3 and out, like I mentioned. They had a bad snap that triggered about 100,000 people inside Bryant-Denny Stadium all at the same time. But this looked like an elite team in the rest of their execution in all 3 phases of the game, regardless of the opponent.
Well, and a lot of teams looked like elite teams in week 1, and they're not all going to end up being. So it's tough to draw too many conclusions. But again, I think what it shows about the basic character and identity of this team is they have the level of athlete on both sides of the ball to do spectacular things if conditions are right, if they are executing correctly, if they have a good game plan. And if an opponent makes a mistake, this is the kind of team that is good enough to take advantage of it and turn it into something big. That sounds like something that you should be able to always take for granted from, like you said, a blue blood like Alabama, but it's not. And to without casting aspersions in any particular direction, Alabama post 2020 has at times looked pretty sloppy. They've looked unspectacular, at least at one side of the ball or other at a time. And it's frustrating to watch when that's the case, to know that you have so much talent on the roster and that the team doesn't seem to be able to take advantage of opponents making mistakes, of schematic advantages, of matchup advantages. They pretty much did all of it yesterday. And, look, a shutout is... There's some luck involved to getting a shutout. It takes the other team like not bothering to kick field goals, which is part of what happened with Western Kentucky. But it's still important, I think, to note that Alabama's defense was able to prevent big plays. They did not allow any big spectacular plays from Western Kentucky. And those guys are outmatched, but they had an experienced quarterback who, by the way, has already played against Alabama 2 other times. And he made some good throws in that game. I think that this is a very solid group of defensive backs, with Keon Sabb maybe being more than solid. He looked pretty spectacular. And I think there's some reason for optimism about the pass rush of this team too. They were able to do some disrupting in the backfield, and that's pretty promising to see too. Again, we'll see what they look like against better competition, but I do think having a defense play this mistake free for an entire game, I don't know that we've seen that many performances of this level in the last 4 years from Alabama. And again, I'm not trying to say that Kalen DeBoer is a better defensive coach than Nick Saban, but sometimes it takes a refresh. Sometimes a new attitude and a new voice and new coaches coming in can make guys play differently.
Sounds like you're saying he's a better coach than Nick Saban, not just defensive coach.
Well, if he was, I will say this: it would have been fun to see him go for 70, and I thought, you know what? Nick Saban would never do that. He would never score 70 points on an opponent. And sure enough, for whatever reason, Kalen DeBoer held up at the end and was content to sit at 63.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you mentioned it. DeBoer he's an offensive guru, but there was some, let's say curiosity, a little bit of anxiety about the other side of the ball that you mentioned. He hired Kane Womack as a defensive coordinator, and they already had some talent on that roster anyway, but they brought in some guys from the portal. And on Saturday, we saw what they're calling the Swarm D, right? Like led by guys like Deontay Lawson, Jihad Campbell. They were fantastic, flying all over the field, amazing lateral quickness, but also newcomers like you mentioned, Keon Sabb, who became a star on Saturday with a couple of picks early in the game. So a lot of defensive questions answered to some degree. But again, I mean, the competition is only going to get better. But Matt, I asked our friend Michael Casagrande a pretty dumb question last week looking ahead to this game where I said, will we see Ryan Williams on Saturday? And listen, to my credit, he only had 2 catches, okay? So we barely saw him. He only had 2 catches. But, Matt, I mean, it's safe to say we saw Ryan Williams, the 17-year-old from Saraland.
He absolutely showed up in a big way, and he's SEC Freshman of the Week out of the gate. A pretty good start to your college football career. I think in both cases, those 2 touchdown plays, if you look at it from the wider view, were the result of an entire offense operating a little bit more efficiently and better all around, because he wasn't the first read on either of those 2 passes. It was a longer developing play that was able to happen in part because the offensive line was doing a really good job for most of the day of protecting Jalen Milroe. And Milroe went through his progressions and saw things opening up and happening. And that's a good sign of progress. I think that's a sign that there's some evolution going on in the way that this offense operates. And again, I don't think they were necessarily pulling out a lot of bells and whistles in terms of what we know is the kind of thing that Kalen DeBoer likes to do offensively. There's typically a lot of motion, a lot of changing personnel packages. They didn't really do a whole lot of that in this game. It was pretty straightforward. And being able to watch Jalen Milroe have the time to watch things develop, see a guy winning a matchup like that, and then executing the throw, that's a very positive sign. That is I would say, looks like it potentially could be a step forward for everybody involved.
Yeah, Milroe looks sharp. He did. And what I've really liked about Milroe this offseason is the guy he seems like a coach's dream to me, especially a coach like DeBoer, again, who is this offensive guru. And if he has a talented quarterback, more than likely it's going to be a really good marriage. But Jalen Milroe, he sounds super coachable. He just sounds like a guy who wants to learn, a guy who wants to get better, which was obviously one of the tones that Saban set, right? You want to consciously improve every single day. Milroe seems to fit that to a T. And so I saw glimpses of that, sure, in terms of reading progressions, like you said, letting plays develop. His instincts as a runner were pretty strong on Saturday too. He only had 7 completions, I believe, on Saturday, and 3 of those were touchdowns. And at one point, he was 3 of 4 in 3 of them, or 4 of whatever, and 4 completions, and he had 3 touchdowns. So efficiency was the name of the game on Saturday. But a lot of questions were answered on Saturday, Matt. But we wondered what it would all look like. I mean, the Walk of Champions, walking out on the field to Thunderstruck, DeBoer running out for the first time, him front and center for everything. But a big one that I have after Saturday, what do we think of Kalen DeBoer's game day outfit? I mean, it's obviously a big change from the standard Nick Saban polo and pleated khakis and giant tennis shoes or sneakers. He's in this this black Alabama hoodie, joggers, crimson script A hat. What did you think of the look?
Well, this is purely a fashion comparison, okay? Don't draw any other parallels from this. Unfortunately, he most resembles, I would say, how Mike Shula dressed on game day. But look, that is what it is. Got some guys. I joked on Twitter this summer about how all the coaching staff at practice were wearing sweats and windbreakers and long sleeves in the Alabama heat. And that's apparently just a thing that coaches do normally. I'm told that seems like maybe some behavior that needs to be analyzed by a professional. But it's a relaxed look. If I'm trying to draw, if I'm trying to make it bigger than it is, everything about the way these guys are approaching things has a less intense vibe to it. And some people that may rub the wrong way. I think you've already heard some players since the game happened say, we're having a little more fun. We're a little bit looser. We're enjoying things a little bit more than we have. And that's very different to hear. I think it's different for the players to experience. Where I'm curious about this, and I think I said it the last time I was on this show, you really learn a lot about the relationship between the fan base and the coach after the first loss. And maybe Alabama doesn't have one this year. I don't know. But at some point, they will likely lose a game in the future. At some point, we will learn how well that relaxed approach comes across when the fans have to hear it after a game that they're angry about, a game that they feel like we should have won this game. And certain people, you start looking around for excuses. You start looking for who to blame. I mean, we're seeing it at LSU today as we're recording this. The fans are saying all the stuff that they loved about Brian Kelly when they hired him, suddenly they all hate it and they think that's the reason they lost that game. Well, so it might be fun right now to see DeBoer being very relaxed. We'll see how the fans react when he's got that sort of cool, unshakable demeanor after a loss. Maybe it's soothing. Maybe it calms people down. Maybe some people look at it and say, hey, if they took things more seriously, maybe they'd be playing better. But it's a revelation for the future for us for now.
All I asked about a hoodie, Matt. I mean, God, you gave me a Terrence Malick movie in that answer.
I'm looking to the crystal ball here.
well, how about, if you want to talk about somebody who didn't look quite as relaxed and for maybe a variety of reasons, especially who's sitting next to him, it's Nick Saban on College Game Day. I mean, it was his second appearance. They were in Ireland last week without a full slate of games, but this was like week one. The full slate was there. He didn't like making picks. He said as much on Saturday. He tested the FCC. He proved that they were a cable television show with some of the language he chose to use. But what did you think of Nick Saban's first full show as a broadcaster and analyst on College Game Day?
It is. I still think it's a little bit of a weird fit for him to be on game day. There's no question that everybody loves hearing Nick Saban talk about college football on TV. He's so good at it. He's so smart. He has so much insight to offer. I don't know that the way that College Game Day is built is the perfect showcase for all of that knowledge and ability, because it's mostly now a show that is a goofing off. It's a tailgate. It's people kicking field goals. It's, stand-up comedians that from Twitter showing up and saying, oh, I bet you're not going to hit it this time. And then everybody cheers. Like, that's what the show is. For better or worse, that is what College Game Day is now. It is not really a remotely serious show that talks about college football. It is a big party. And Saban did seem to be enjoying some of those elements of it. I saw a video of him kind of like turning around to the crowd and doing sort of the, orchestra conductor of them all singing Take Me Home Country Road, which is like, that's really nice. I think that's fun that he's out there having fun. And these were not fans these are fans that cursed his name for his entire career. These are Texas A&M and Notre Dame fans. And they all were cheering for Nick Saban like he has, in fact, become this universally beloved figure in the sport now. And it's cool. I think that's really fun to see. I'd still love to see him call a game at some point in the booth. I hope we get to see that from him.
Yeah, I thought he was great. He's great television. We know we've been covering him for years, and whenever he speaks, people listen. And now that he's got this platform, which is just enormous, and everybody's going to be watching him across the nation instead of just Alabama fans zeroing in on him, it's just going to be appointment television. And it already was, but even more so now that he's on the panel. And we want to wish condolences or send condolences to Nick Saban and his family. Obviously, his mother, Mary Saban Pasco, passed away late last week, I believe. So. Thoughts are with him and his family. Matt, moving on, a guy that many thought had a foot in the door to be the next Alabama coach part of a decade ago was Dabo Swinney. And Clemson had a much anticipated showdown against Georgia to start the season on Saturday. Kirby and the Bulldogs absolutely dominated, winning that game by, I think, 34-3, 31-3, by 30 points. And I don't know that nobody expected it. Everybody thinks Georgia's a better team and a better program than Clemson right now, but I thought Clemson looked out of their depth on Saturday. It looked like two programs moving in polar opposite directions. And Matt, you had a monster tweet about Dabo during Clemson's meltdown. So, Matt, what has happened to this program under Dabo Swinney?
They don't have it. They are not competitive at the top level of the sport anymore. And it is purely a talent issue. They had better talent than everybody else when they were competing for national championships, despite the image that Dabo loved to project of we're just little old Clemson. They weren't. They beat Alabama twice in national title games because they had NFL defensive linemen and wide receivers and quarterbacks and all kinds of incredibly talented guys at every position on the field. And they don't have that anymore. And there's only one reason that they don't have it anymore. And it is because Dabo has refused on some kind of ideological basis to recruit players to his program the way that everybody else does it now. It's not against the rules. It's not an ethical issue. Maybe he thinks it is. I don't know. But you are allowed to go get players out of the transfer portal and bring them to your school. And Dabo simply refuses to do it. He doesn't think it's a good idea. He says it's not what's best for Clemson. But getting blown out on national TV is certainly not what's best for Clemson. And it is simply a matter of Dabo is not making the choices that you have to make to keep your program competitive. And I don't think it's about the school. It's not about their donor base. It's not anything other than the head coach refusing to adapt to the sport in the way that his peers are. So it's going to happen wherever he is. And if he doesn't like it, he's going to have to follow Nick Saban into retirement.
It's tough, because I mentioned that a lot of people thought Dabo could be the next guy at one point. Because, I mean, if you take a look or a blind look at or a blind resume test, right, and you just look at like what Dabo had accomplished at Clemson and you didn't know who it was, right, and it's 2 national championships, multiple national championship appearances, 6 playoff appearances, who knows how many games he won, who knows how many conference championships he won, draft picks, elite recruiting classes. I mean, the list goes on here, and you would think, oh, wow, I want that guy as my next head coach at Alabama, right? But all you have to do is say, no, it's Dabo Swinney, and it repels people. And they say, no, never mind, I don't want him. And it's just been kind of a shocking fall off in terms of perception, especially for Dabo as an elite head coach. Like I said, he's going in the opposite direction of where Kirby Smart, for instance, is going. And a lot of these head coaches on these trajectories where people think they're going to be in the national championship picture for a long time. Clemson appears to be completely out of it.
Yeah, and I think that it goes to show you a couple of things. It's in some ways, seeing stories like this help you appreciate what Nick Saban did in his career even more, because it isn't just about getting to the top and then you stay there. It's a constant battle all the time because the game itself is changing. And Nick Saban had to make fundamental changes to his process, to the thing that he had established of this is how you win. He had to rethink that every year and say, well, what is the best way to win now? How do we change what we've been doing that works? And so that we can stay competitive, so that we can stay on top. And that takes a lot of courage to do that, to throw away things that you've been doing that worked, because you have the confidence of your own abilities to look around and say, that's not how it's going to work anymore. I mean, that's bold. That takes some foresight and some wisdom to be able to do that. But the other thing, Ben, with Dabo, and you and I have talked about this a lot over the years, I never thought that Dabo would be the guy at Alabama. And it's not because he couldn't ever win. It's because he's not a cultural fit for this program and this fan base anymore. And I know that's shocking to a lot of people to hear because Dabo literally played at Alabama. So how could he not be a cultural fit? But the truth of it is Nick Saban changed what the culture of the program is. He changed the culture of Alabama football so much that even a guy who played there and genuinely loved Alabama football his whole life. Well, I've talked to Dabo about it back at one of those Sugar Bowls back in the day. And I mean, his eyes lit up talking about how much he loved Alabama football as a child. But it's not the same program that it used to be. And it probably never will be again because Nick Saban fundamentally changed how people view college football in Tuscaloosa. And it's such a way that I don't think the way Dabo does it fits. Not just the lack of success, but just sort of looking at things like you're always the underdog. Alabama's never going to feel like the underdog. You walk into that locker room, you walk out of that tunnel with the $1 million video boards around you and 100,000 people screaming, and you're not the underdog. You are the Death Star, and everybody's afraid of you. And that works for Alabama. And I think that's just how their mindset is going to be for the foreseeable future.
Enough ACC, Matt. That's enough. The last question that I have for you, the SEC is stacked. I mean, Georgia is number one. Texas and Oklahoma obviously joined the party this year. Regulars like LSU, Ole Miss, Tennessee are still around. Missouri is even in the mix. And look, some teams struggled on Saturday, so maybe it's a little bit more open than we thought. So after what we saw in Tuscaloosa on Saturday, do you think Alabama can win the SEC?
I think they have a shot at it. I probably felt about like everybody else going into the season that this was something that Alabama was, could win enough to be a playoff team. I don't know if they've got it to actually win the conference, which is going to be very tough to do this year. But I don't know. I mean, I think their offense and defense looked as strong as anybody else in the league this weekend. And even Georgia in that dominant win over Clemson, I don't think they look perfect. I think that there are some holes in that defense. I think that there are some parts of that offense that are not perfectly unstoppable. I don't think they look like a totally unbeatable death machine right now. And that's what makes it more interesting to me. I think Georgia's going to be really good, and I'm sure they probably end up in the SEC championship game. But I'm not 100% sure they get there undefeated anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean, it does seem way wide open, but it's week one, right? And we're reacting to the first week of the season, and we don't want to overreact, but that's what we do when we get.
We don't want to overreact to anything other than that it's very clear Florida is bad.
Rough.
That
was rough.
One.
Well, Matt, thanks for looking back at week one with me. Alabama faces South Florida at home on Saturday. Kickoff is the same time, 6 o'clock in Bryant-Denny Stadium, and we'll talk again soon. So much appreciated, and we'll see you again soon. And we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with Josh Sneed from SEC Shorts. So stick around on Beat Everyone.
Welcome to Beat Everyone. I'm Ben Flanagan, and today is very special. You look forward to the hilarious videos our guest posts every college football week, and you hope and pray for whatever offseason content he and his team bless us with. I'm talking about Josh Sneed of SEC Shorts, and the SEC Shorts crew will bring their incredible live show to the Bama Theater in Tuscaloosa the Friday night of the Georgia weekend. That's September 27th. Doors open at 6 p.m. Show starts at 7. Josh Sneed, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And thanks for mentioning the live show. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Dude, of course, I haven't been to one of the live shows, but I've seen and heard some things from it, and I know that it's incredible. And if you're a fan of SEC Shorts, which I know y'all have just an insane fan base, you got to go. You got to see what you guys can do live, because what we see on video is just they're amazing, and as prolific and talented as you guys are with those and have been for so many years. Y'all just take it up a notch, and y'all just reach an entirely new level when y'all are playing to a live audience, and you see how much thought, how much preparation, how much care you put into it, and the jokes and the visuals and everything. I mean, I do want to quickly start with that, with the live show. that seems to have taken on a life of its own, and you guys are able to go from SEC town to SEC town and interact with people and get live reactions. It's not just reading comments. It's not social shares. You're seeing real human beings react to what you guys do. What is that like?
Yeah, that's great. And first, thanks for saying all those nice things about it. Yeah, it's the show's completely different. So it's more like a variety show, really. We have sketches, audience games. Hannah sings a song. Eric does stand up. It's a little bit of everything, and we prepare for the show months in advance. So, with our videos, we have 15 hours to work on those no matter what. And with the show, we actually have time to we do probably 6 sketches throughout the show. It's a 90-minute show. So it has at least 6 sketches in it that we've spent writer's room time, honing the jokes and changing stuff around and trying stuff out in rehearsal and changing the lines. So we actually have time to work on it and make it better. So we're really proud of the show. So thank you for saying such nice things about it. And you should come out and check one out. It's a good time, and we love doing them. And you mentioned the crowds, and it's other than theater in high school and college, I hadn't really experienced this, but when you walk out on stage and 1,500 people are clapping and laughing and having a good time, it's addictive. It's very addictive. So we want to do more of them, and we hope people like the shows.
I think it's good-natured, SEC Shorts. It's never been mean-spirited in any way, and the whole idea is that fan bases need to be able to laugh at themselves, and it's never harsh. It's always based in truth, like most comedy is. But I've never felt like SEC Shorts has gone below the belt in any way. I think everybody just gets a big kick out of it. And I'm not asking for spoilers. I appreciate you sharing what you've shared here. But I do want to sort of get into the process a little bit about SEC Shorts. You guys have been doing this for years now, but I think a lot of people want to know how you decide to portray each school or fan base in your sketches. What goes into the decision of what that character, that personification is going to be like, and who's going to play that character in each of the sketches?
Who plays the character is it's a very sensitive thing that we take very seriously, that's centered solely around who fits in the jersey we have for that team. So if there are multiple teams in a scene and we have an extra large jersey, then Eric's going to play that part. And it's very important that it be Eric, because we only have mediums and extra large. So that's how we decide who plays who. Now, Robert went to Auburn, so he usually plays Auburn because he can really associate with the amount of dead you have to be inside to be an Auburn fan. And
there's a real sadness in his eyes.
Yeah. And that comes honestly. That's not acting. That's just him as an Auburn fan living his life. So he's able to really tap into that, and we take advantage of it.
Not many people can go to that place either,
It's very hard. It's not, we're internet actors, we can't really go there. We have to rely on, real life to tap into. For me, I have an air of superiority and excellence, so I usually play Alabama. And also all the shirts fit me. So again, as I mentioned, that's a very key thing. We had 15 hours to make a short film. That's
yeah, I was going to say, this is an Alabama show, and I was just going to say, I see that in you, right? I see that air of superiority, and I appreciate that, and I admire that, and I think that you play Alabama with impeccable dignity and accuracy. So well done by you.
Ben, I'm a born winner. That's just plain and simple. I want to get that out there and make sure people know that. I'm a champion through and through. It just makes sense for me to be Alabama. So
we understand, obviously, and yeah, I mean, you're an Alabama fan, right?
I'm intimidated, but let's be honest, I'm intimidated.
True. Hey, I think I've played you in a 3-on-3 basketball tournament before, so I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
And
you remember me dribbling with both hands and shooting my free throws, granny style.
Well, let's not pull the curtain back too far here, Josh. But yeah, I mean, there's fandom among the people who are making these things. There's Alabama fandom. Obviously, you mentioned Auburn and his sad Auburn fandom with Robert. Do you think that any specific fan allegiances have any influence over who gets to be the butt of the joke on a given week?
Oh, yeah. So obviously you can make a video making fun of Auburn every week, but because Robert's an Auburn fan and he does all the editing and all the work, basically, we don't make fun of them near as much as we probably could. I mean, every week I'm like, oh, Auburn. He's like, yeah, I don't think people really care about that. So I think we could really be leaning more into Auburn, to be honest with you. But Auburn, Robert has his allegiances. They featured him in the alumni magazine last year, so now there's no chance we probably ever make fun of him. So.
Yeah, and so in terms of process, and I know that you guys have talked about this a good bit, and I think it's incredible when y'all offer, again, a peek behind the scenes of how it works. I think when y'all did a prom video once years ago, and you kind of like went behind the scenes, and it was like a featurette of like how y'all got that done, and it was just absolutely incredible. But I mean, college football and the media cycle is so fluid and so fast. Y'all are having to work at the last minute in a lot of ways to meet the deadline that you have, but storylines are changing in that time span too. So at what point do you figure out your idea? And like, what is the deadline each week to where it's like, okay, we know now this is the theme, this is the idea that we're going for, this is what we need, we got to write, and this is when we produce. Can you kind of take us through the exact timeline?
So, we wait and watch all the games and see what's happening, see what kind of people are talking about through Saturday night. And then we wake up Sunday morning. And then hopefully, if it's going well, by between 9 and 11 a.m., we have an idea set. And then Robert will start writing a script. And while I'm like out doing like random junk work, like collecting props, calling actors, finding a location and stuff, I'll try to text him jokes or any ideas I have, or he'll text me and be like, this needs an ending. And then while he's making like shirts, like cricketing shirts or building a prop of some kind, I'm like, okay, I'll try to come up with an ending, or we'll just start shooting and come up with an ending as we go. It's like once we get an idea, it's just full steam ahead. And so what's hard about, and you mentioned the bowl dance one, that's one where we have to start and get half a day's work done before they announce what teams are going to which bowls. So then once that's announced, then you have to start writing what the matchups are, who's wearing this sash and who's dancing with this person and who's got this line or that line. So you're writing as you're like blowing up balloons and, putting out a fake punch bowl, and you're just throwing lines out to each other, and people are like, that sucks. And people are like, okay, I guess that's good enough. And so you're just trying to throw it together. But, otherwise we sort of divide and conquer and then meet up at the shoot and try to get it done. And then Robert goes home and edits till 3 a.m. And
y'all had a video that delivered an unexpected emotional boom when y'all basically bid farewell to Nick Saban after he retired. But it felt kind of like a Pixar moment, if I'm being totally honest with you, where again, like we were getting the feels watching an SEC Shorts video, and that isn't always the case outside of We Laugh Until We Cry. But like, what was that like? Sort of like, you delivered the laughs in that video, but you also delivered a pretty heartfelt, emotional moment that I don't think a lot of people expected.
Yeah, I think, we've tried a few times where there are big stories that happen in the SEC, and fans, especially someone like Nick Saban, who meant a lot to a lot of fans. You just try to create a sweet moment and see if it lands with fans. One time when was it Les Miles? He retired or something. We tried to do like a sweet video for him, and I don't know, it was kind of dumb, and so it didn't work out. Sometimes it doesn't work, but we try it. Nick Saban leaving is obviously something you don't want to like celebrate or something. So if you try to create a little emotion along with it, and I think it landed with Alabama fans, and some of the comments after were like, he didn't die, he just retired, and so I don't know if we went too far. I feel like we did a good job, but sometimes you go sentimental, try to do something different.
Yeah, I think you crushed it. Like I remember reading the comments where people were like, "Oh no, I didn't know that was coming," or like, "Oh, it got dusty in here." The ninjas cutting onions comments, that kind of thing. So I think you nailed it. totally nailed it. It was awesome. And like I said, unexpected and a nice cherry on top to the season. But you had something for me, Josh.
Yes, I did. Thank you. So you know how people set goals for themselves. I don't know if you're a vision board guy. I'm not, but I write my goals out for the year. One of my goals for 2024 is those how teams put out hype videos before like the guys running out of the tunnel, and
Yeah, of
hype
course.
videos. Yeah, hype videos now also have clips from media people who are like doubting the team or saying something stupid, and then they cut to like the linebacker like crushing someone from Old Dominion or something like who shouldn't even be on the field. So, my goal for one of my goals for this year is to get into one of these hype videos. So I was hoping that you would let me. I just wanted to throw out some like super hot, takes, and see if you would play along with me to see if maybe someone would isolate it later.
Yes.
And then it could get put into one of these videos.
100%. We're here to set you up for success.
Okay. Good. So, for this part, I'll be playing Buff Carrington from SEC Mania. And your line is Buff. Let's see. Your line will be, Buff, are you as excited about this Alabama defense as the rest of us? And so, Matt, if you could put Buff Carrington in my lower third SEC Mania just later when you're editing this, that'd be great. So, Ben, whenever you're ready with your line.
Buff, are you as excited about this Alabama defense as the rest of us?
Oh, come on, Ben. It's so fitting that this guy's name is DeBoer because this defense he's putting out there is DeBoering. I mean, you think these guys are going to stop anybody without Caleb Downs? Come on. They're not going to tackle anybody. Okay. And then they can cut to someone like getting destroyed. Now, for this time, how about like Jalen Milroe? Something about Jalen Milroe.
Okay, I'm ready. Buff, Jalen Milroe, Heisman season on the way, right?
Heisman. This guy's not going to sniff a Heisman. Are you kidding me? It's going to be the same thing we see from this guy all the time. He can't throw the passes underneath, and that's Kalen DeBoer's bread and butter. I mean, come on. This guy, what is he going to do? Run for all his touchdowns? Come on. I think Buff needs a catchphrase.
For sure. You got one, don't you? You got one in the back pocket?
That dog don't hunt.
Perfect. Got it.
Okay.
Well, look, man, you got a new character here. It's ready to go. Mid-season form, I would say. And however that helps Alabama, I'm all for it.
And again, people, aggregators out there, if you could just isolate this, maybe get me into a hype video. It's really my main goal for the year.
We'll get that ball rolling. You don't worry about that. Thank you for doing that, Josh. Josh, the last thing we want to do with you is play a little game that we think that you will be especially good at. You have a really particular set of skills, as some might say. Your expertise is unparalleled when it comes to knowledge of the SEC and roasting it. We're going to name some SEC schools, and I want you, if you would be so kind, to tell me what major chain restaurant best represents that school. Are you comfortable doing that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we'll start easy. Tennessee.
I'm going to go with Guthrie's for Tennessee. They're not really the main event, but if they fit the right mood, if you're maybe you're looking for a little bit of offense, kind of like you would look for, I'm just in a chicken finger mood.
Okay. We'll move on to
what's your go-to chicken finger place?
My go-to chicken finger place?
Yeah.
Josh, I happen to rank fast food chicken fingers for AL.com this year, and Guthrie's was, I think Guthrie's was at the top of the list, close to it. I went through Slim Chickens. I went through Zaxby's, Fusakli's, a lot of these Alabama-born places.
That's what I was trying to think of.
Okay.
Because Guthrie's is no Zaxby's, really. I feel like Zaxby's is better than Guthrie's.
Okay. All right. So we'll go with the Zaxby's or, okay,
No,
Guthrie's.
No. I want to go with
Guthrie's for
10. They're one step down.
Well, we'll go with what, people consider the home of Guthrie's next. Let's go to Auburn.
let's see. I'd have to go with Captain D's, because you show up thinking you're going to get something, you just leave disappointed, no matter what you want. So I'd have to go with Captain D's.
Okay, Captain D's. I think it fits. That tracks.
Yeah, it
okay.
is. Some of you out there are big Hush Puppy fans. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Well, you guys had a huge performance in College Station last year. Let's go with Texas A&M next.
Texas A&M. Oh gosh, it's got to be something weird. What's a fast food place? What's the? Is it Jollibees that they Jollibees? They're not everywhere, but they've got like they serve spaghetti, but also like chicken fingers. It's just a weird. Yeah, it's like a weird fast food place. They do a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
I think that's what that would be.
Never heard of it, but it sounds perfect for Texas A&M. Okay,
yeah,
we got to
want to go through a drive-through and get spaghetti. I think a Jollibee's is and the sauce is like sweet. I think they put barbecue in it or something. I don't know.
Oh, now that just sounds unappetizing. Okay, let's go to LSU.
LSU. I mean, obviously, it's got to be Popeyes. I mean, I guess that's 2 on the nose.
No, I don't think so. I think that's perfect. Okay, let's go to Ole Miss.
I think Ole Miss would be the Chick-fil-A. I mean, I think they're like a little fancier.
That's high praise, Josh. Mm-hmm. Is it the chandeliers and the tailgates? Is that like what you're...
Yeah, and the bow ties. They're, Ole Miss fans are a little fancier than regular fans. And Chick-fil-A's a little fancier.
Fancy fast food. Okay, got it. Okay, we're winding down here. Georgia would be... I mean, that would be... They're McDonald's right now. Ooh.
Yeah. They're always there when you need them.
Or what's like a fast food place that thinks they're McDonald's, though? You know what I mean?
Ooh.
Like they think they're McDonald's. They're close, but I don't know. Maybe, but maybe, I guess, maybe. I think McDonald's is fine. Look, we got to give it up to Georgia. They're the kings until further notice. Nick Saban said it himself on TV last week. Okay, last two. Florida.
Oh, God. Florida, I don't even think they're I wouldn't consider them a fast food. Florida would be like if you come across like gas station food that you're just like, I don't care. I don't know what's even at the next exit. I'm just going to eat whatever's at this gas station. And you end up eating like Crispitos or like like that sausage without a bun that's just been burning under a lamp for 4 hours. I think that's probably good.
Got it. Yeah, perfect. Okay, last one, Josh. This one hits home. Alabama.
You know what? I'm going to say, I don't want to elevate them past. Should I elevate them past fast food and say that they're Ruby Tuesdays?
Yes.
They're the Ruby Tuesdays of dining, I guess.
Yeah. Alabama's got the salad bar, man.
Wait, you go past the exit with all the fast food and you say, I'm holding out for the big exit and I'm going to eat at the salad bar today.
Nailed it, dude. Nailed it. Perfect. Well done. 8 for 8 there, I think. And that's just half of the SEC too. So we'll have to come back to it down the road and assign chain restaurants to the rest of the SEC. Josh, thank you so much for doing this. People can find SEC Shorts on YouTube. Catch the SEC Shorts live show at the Bama Theater in downtown Tuscaloosa Friday night, September 27th, before the Georgia game. Starts at 7 o'clock. Josh, thank you so much, man. We're huge fans of yours and can't wait to see what you guys do this season, but we really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben, so much for having me on. Tickets for the live show are at secshorts.com, so check that out if you're going to be in Tuscaloosa the day before the Georgia game, and thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, thank you, Josh, and you can catch Beat Everyone wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time. Beat Everyone is brought to you by Broadway Joe's Fantasy Sports, inspired by football legend Joe Namath. Embrace the thrill of daily fantasy sports like never before in a new app coming soon.